Hello and welcome to Up and Running with Lacework. My name is Scott Ford and I'm a principal architect here at Lacework. Lacework at its core is a data platform. And to put it succinctly, the data that resides in each customer account is immense. Luckily, the engine behind the platform makes sense of all that data and organizes it for our customers so that they can easily zero in on the most critical security concerns. While the UI provides a ton of capabilities to run reports, dive into events, and do deep investigations around incidents, sometimes you need access to all of that data outside of the UI for automation or to reduce context switching in a workflow. Enter the Lacework CLI. The Lacework CLI is an open source project written in Golang and released as separate binaries for Linux, macOS, and Windows. Additionally, all releases of the CLI are published as Docker containers for various platforms with the intended purpose of integrating with CI/CD automation pipelines. Lacework as a platform provides a robust set of APIs for configuring accounts within the platform, as well as accessing data from accounts. The Lacework CLI provides an interface to those APIs with the goal of providing fast, accurate, and actionable insights. Today, I'm going to walk you through the basics. I'm going to show you how to install the CLI, how to get it configured to your account, and then take you through some of the more common subcommands that you can use for day-to-day tasks of accessing the Lacework platform. Before we do that, though, who is this for? This is for teams who really want that fast, accurate, and actionable insights into the data without having to log into the UI. Also, if you're responsible for triaging the events generated by Lacework, this too can be really valuable for you. I'm going to show you a way that you can list out all the events, filter them by severity, and then when you need to dig in, have a quick way to open up events within the console straight from the CLI. This is also for teams who are responsible for remediating vulnerabilities on hosts and containers in your environments. We have both those capabilities in the platform, but I'll show you how you can get access to that data on your local workstation without having to go and log into the UI. This is also just for people that prefer command lines to the UI. I'm a systems administrator myself. I like it when I can automate things and my fingers don't leave home row. If that's you as well, then this is also going to be value for you. There are, of course, a couple of prereqs. You're going to need to have a Lacework account, and you're going to need to have an access to a workstation. That's either Linux, Mac, or Windows workstation. But once you've got that, we're ready to get going, and let's go ahead and dive right in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and get the documentation to install the Lacework CLI. And for that, you need to head on out to our GitHub account. So that's github.com/Lacework. And if you search here for the Go SDK, you'll see this is the repo. So it's github.com/Lacework/Go-SDK. And the Go SDK is our software development kit for Golang, and it provides a number of tools, libraries for interacting with the Lacework APIs using Go. This is also the project that we build the Lacework CLI from. Right here on the README, though, you'll see the commands you can use to install the CLI on your workstation. So the bash option is for Linux and macOS. And then if you're running on Windows, you can do the same thing here in PowerShell. I'm running on macOS, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this curl command. So we have an install script that will figure out which platform you're on and then pipe that out to bash. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to head over to my terminal, and just to show you here, I don't have the Lacework CLI installed right now. If I go ahead and paste that in and hit enter, perfect. Now the Lacework CLI is installed. And if I type Lacework version, it'll show that I'm on the latest version as of this recording, which is 0.2.1. Now note, if you already have the Lacework CLI installed and you run the command Lacework version, Lacework CLI will always go and look to see if there is a newer version available. And if there is, it will prompt you to install that newest version. The first thing you should know to get familiarized with the Lacework CLI is there's always a help command. The help command is always there. It's going to show you, we push frequent changes to the Lacework CLI. We're going to be introducing new functionality all the time. But today you can see all the available commands, including generating temporary access tokens for accessing the API. We've got an API subcommand, which is a helper for interacting with the API using the Lacework CLI. We've got a subcommand for compliance reports, a subcommand for the vulnerability, a subcommand to add and manage integrations with the platform. But the first command that we're really going to want to dig into is this configure command, where you need to set up Lacework CLI to communicate with the platform. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear my screen here and type Lacework configure -- help. And the instructions here tell you that you need to log into the UI, generate an API key, download that API key, and then we can use the Lacework configure command and pass a JSON file with the downloaded API key. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm over here and I'm logged into my customer demo account, and I'm gonna go over to settings. And the first section here is API keys. Now note, Lacework is a multi-account platform. You can have many sub-accounts underneath there. So I can see right here that I'm logged into the customer demo account. That's the one where I'm generating my key. And I'm gonna go ahead and click create new API key. I'll give this a name. We'll call this Lacework CLI. I'll click save. And now I can go ahead and I can click download right here on the right. I'm going to download that link. I'm going to grab this JSON file that I just downloaded. I'll go over here to my terminal, and I'm just going to drop that in my terminal. And we're going to run that command again. So it's going to be Lacework configure, but this time I'm going to pass the flag -J for JSON file and the path to that JSON. So if you can't drag and drop into your terminal, just do Lacework configure -J and the path to that JSON file that you just downloaded. Now, the first time you set up the Lacework CLI, it's going to ask you which account you are configuring. You can see here, my account is customer demo. And then from there, it's going to automatically populate the contents of this JSON file. So the access key ID is automatically populated, and the secret access key is hidden from the screen. All right, so we're all set now. I'm going to go ahead and type clear, and we're going to run the first command just to validate that we can authenticate with the platform. I'm going to type Lacework integration list. And this is going to list out all of the integrations in this customer demo environment. So we can see we've got a bunch here, and I am successfully authenticating with the platform. Okay, before we move on, I do want to show you really quick, we can configure multiple accounts with the Lacework CLI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to Lacework Shop here. And I don't have an API key created for Lacework Shop, so I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to type Lacework -CLI. I'm going to go ahead and click save. The same thing, I'm going to download this file again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this over to my terminal. I'm going to drop that in, and I'm going to type the command Lacework configure -J. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a profile name, Lacework -shop, just as it is in the console. And when I pass that profile name, it's automatically populated here for the account name as well. And you'll see that the key ID and the secret key are both populated as well. All right, so now that I have two accounts configured, I can type the command Lacework integration list, but this time -P for profile, and I'm going to pass Lacework -shop. And I can see the integrations that reside in that account. So now I have two accounts configured with the Lacework CLI, and I have the ability to quickly access data from either account just by passing the profile name that I want to interact with. Now, you should note that all of these configurations are stored in your local home directory. So in a file called .lacework.toml. And those are those configurations. These will be deleted after this video, but you can see you can have as many of these configurations as you want inside of your account. All right, so with that configured now, we're ready to move on to the next section with the Lacework CLI. So Lacework help. And that subcommand we're going to dive into next is the event subcommand. So Lacework event -- help. Lacework event. All right, so this is about accessing the events that are raised up automatically by the platform. You could see that for this particular command, we've got a couple of aliases. You could type event or you could type events. Either one will work. And we've got 3 different subcommands. We've got the list, the open, and the show command. We're going to first of all start off with the list command. And so the Lacework, this will allow you to, by default, pull the last 7 days for all of the events, but we can also filter that by severity or filter by the number of days. Let's go ahead and take a look at just what we do by default. So Lacework event list. And there you go. There's a ton of events that have been generated here. But notice that a lot of these events, they're all categorized by their severity. So all the info events, all the low events, all the medium events. Now, if you're a day-to-day, if you're responsible for all these events, you really want to be able to dive into what's most critical so you can spend your time and prioritize correctly. And the Lacework CLI helps you to do just that. So I can pass that same command, but this time I'm going to pass -- severity. I'm going to say medium. And what that will do is return a threshold of medium events and above. But I'm also going to pass -- days and the number of days that I want to see events from. In this case, I'm going to say the last 2 days. Let's see, whatever medium and above events. So that's medium, high, and critical events for the last 2 days. And there we go. So we've got 3 medium events and 1 high in the last 2 days. And I can start to dive in further from here. So again, we're going to take a look at the command Lacework events event -- help. And let's check out this next one, which is the show command. This is the ability to show details about a specific event. Lacework event show and -- help. And with this one, we just need to pass in the event flag for the event that we want to have access to. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of these events. So 42747. So I'll say Lacework event show and then pass in that number. And now I've got the details of this event. So it looks like there's a new external server IP that was for a particular instance in our environment. And if I want to go and do further investigation about why this event was raised, there's a link right here that will take me right into the platform. So I could click on this link. And now I can start to do further investigation about the who, what, when, where, why this particular event was raised up. Great. Now, I also want to point out too that in your triage, if you're listing through your events, so Lacework event list, and you see a particular event, maybe you recognize the category of the event and you want to see exactly what this is. If you've got the event ID, there's also a Lacework event open command, and we can actually just call that, use that command, and again, open a particular event right in the UI and link that up. So hopefully this is helpful for you to be able to go from listing out your events, figuring out which ones you need to zero in on, and when you're ready to do your investigation, go straight into the platform and begin that investigation. All right, so this is the main functionality that you're going to want day to day for using the event command. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section, which is vulnerability assessments. So we type Lacework vulnerability -- help. You can see there's 2 subcommands. There is the container subcommand and there's the host subcommand. You can also see that there's a number of different aliases for the word vulnerability, because who likes to type that long word? So we're going to use vul from here on out. And we're going to dive first of all into the container vulnerability assessments. And we'll say Lacework vul container -- help. And the first thing you'll need to note is that you need to have a container registry already integrated with the platform. I'm going to link to documentation in the description of this video, but to note, you can do that manually through the Lacework UI. You can use the Lacework CLI, has a Lacework integration create command in which you can connect up Docker containers or Amazon container registries. And then from there, the other option too is we have Terraform code that allows you to connect up your container registries using Terraform for automation. So I'll link to all that in the description for the video. But we're going to assume you've already got a container registry already connected up, and we'll move right into understanding what's available using the Lacework CLI. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to list out all the assessments that we already have for container images. So I'm going to run the command lacework, and it's VUL, and you can also alias container, which is CTR, and I'm going to choose list assessments. Okay, so here's the response back, and you can see these are all the assessments that we have for this particular environment. Note, this is just a demo environment for us. This isn't a big production environment or anything, but this should give you a good idea of the type of data that we're returning back. So we've got the registry, we've got the repository, we've got the last scan, the status of that scan, and then something that's really unique to Lacework and our vulnerability assessments is we've got the number of containers that are actively running in your environment for that particular image. This is really important because if you're zeroing in on where you should be spending your time, you don't want to be spending your time on images that aren't running out there. So this is really helpful to dive in and understand what's actually running in my environment. And from there, asking the questions around which of these containers have vulnerabilities. And of course, there's the image digest for you as well as an identifier for this. But let's go ahead and let's run that same command and see that there's actually some filters that we can run to get access to more useful data. And this time I'm going to pass the flags -- active and -- fixable. And with that, we can see that despite there was a number of images we've run assessments on, there's really only one image here that is actively running in the environment that has vulnerabilities with fixes. So I'm going to go through and we can dive in a little bit deeper. So the next command that we're going to want to take a look at is the show assessment command. And the show assessment command allows you to see details about a specific image that you're looking for. So we're going to type Lacework VUL CTR show - assessment and pass in the image ID of the particular image that we're looking for. All right, so this time we see we've got a particular image that we know is running in our environment. It's got no critical vulnerabilities, but it's got one high with a fix. It's got 17 medium CVEs with 2 fixes, 15 low, and 56 info CVE. So the area we'd really want to probably spend our time is on those high and potentially the medium vulnerabilities that are out there. But we can get even more information by passing the -- details flag and see all this information that comes back. All right, so this response now we see not just the view of the number of vulnerabilities, but we get more information, including the CVE, the severity, the package, the version that's currently installed, plus the fixed version, and the layer that that particular vulnerability was introduced to. We've got even one more viewpoint that we can take a look at that's helpful for when you're trying to remediate these particular packages is by passing the -- packages flag. And this filter will show you a listing of all the packages that have CVEs and rank those by severity as well. Oftentimes, a single package can have multiple CVEs installed, so you can get a better sense, like, if I were to patch this, how many CVEs will I be remediating for this for that particular package? So hopefully really useful information for you. But this is a start. So if you're a developer, you're working on your service, you want to understand what are the things that I can patch before I push my next change through the pipeline. This data is there for you to be able to make that happen. And before we pivot off of the container vulnerability, we will just point out one more time that there is the Lacework VUL container commands that allow you to integrate with pipelines. So we've got a scan command, which does allow you to integrate into a CI/CD pipeline, so you can pass in registry repository. And for that, we ship ephemeral containers, Docker containers for job runners inside of really any kind of CI/CD tooling. That pretty much all of them today support the use of Docker containers for your job runners. But if you needed to install the Lacework CLI on a static job runner, you just follow the same steps that we did before, and that will work just the same. We can install it, configure it, and you'll be off to the races. All of the configuration can also be passed as environment variables too, which are in the documentation, which will link in the description. Okay, so with container registries now, we're gonna move on to the next section, which is on host vulnerabilities. And so this time I'm gonna say Lacework host -- help. And we can see we've got a number of subcommands. We can list all the CVEs in the environment. We can list the hosts that have particular CVEs. We can show assessments about specific hosts to dive into the details, just like we did with containers. And we can also run a scan of a package manifest, which is useful in a base image build pipeline. Like if you're using HashiCorp Packer or something and you want to generate a manifest, you can submit those for scan before you build the images. So the first thing we're going to do though is we're going to get a look at all the CVEs that are running on hosts in my environment. So Lacework VUL host list CVEs. All right, and we've got a lot of CVEs that have come back, but you'll notice just as before, not all this stuff are CVEs that I want to spend my time on. We can see they're all ranked by severity. We've got a bunch of highs, a bunch of mediums, a bunch of lows, and a bunch of negligible stuff that is really just not that important for us to be wasting our time on. But more importantly, too, what's really unique to the new host vulnerability capability in Lacework is that we not only tell you about vulnerabilities, but we're going to tell you if those packages are actually active on the host and whether or not the host is active in the environment. And so just as with the container command, we can run that same command we ran before, but this time we're going to pass active and fixable. And we're going to see just the CVEs in the environment that are actually active on hosts and those same hosts that there are actual fixes for these CVEs. And with that, we have a much more manageable list and we can zero in on the particular CVEs that we want to start to remediate. Now I'm going to grab one of these CVEs right here, and we're going to take a look at another command, which is that we have the Lacework vulnerability host list hosts with a particular CVE. And from there, we can see all the hosts in the environment that have a particular CVE. In this case, there's only one host. If we want to look at another one here there's a couple of hosts that are running this other CVE, we're going to get a list back. And this is really important because oftentimes the CVEs on VMs that are running those like EC2 instances running in your environment, they're related to a very specific base image, a base AMI. And so you can get a sense for which of these AMIs you need to patch and roll out across your environment. So hopefully this is really useful. You can zero in, we can see just those hosts, but we can also pass in too, let's show me just the hosts that are online in my environment too. So really zero in further, cut the noise, focus in on the stuff that's actionable inside of your environment. All right, so I've got one more thing I'm going to show you, which is that the same type of workflow, if we're working to patch particular instances and we're working on that, if I'm the developer assigned with, say, patching the base image, I might want to get more details on those vulnerabilities. So I'm going to grab one of these machine IDs, so this one, 1923, and I'm going to, this time, pass the command Lacework vul host, and we're going to say show-assessment for that particular host ID, but we're also this time just going to cut right to it and pass the -- details flag. And now we can see the particular host and all the vulnerabilities that are on that host. So these are, if I go out and I patch this particular AMI, then hopefully all these vulnerabilities will go away if there are actual fixes available for them, which there are in this case. So So great. So this is all the information. If you're assigned to patching vulnerabilities on the base images in your environment, all that data is accessible via the Lacework CLI. The last thing that I will point out for the Lacework vulnerability host command is, again, that scan package manifest command. We're going to be tackling this in an upcoming up and running with Lacework. We're going to build an image pipeline for building base images, and we'll scan those package manifests that we generate as part of that process, and show you how you can catch these vulnerabilities at build time before you push the images. The last thing we're going to dive into is the compliance command. And you can see that Lacework compliance is the ability to generate compliance reports or pull down compliance reports from your environment. But in order to do that, you need to have the account ID for a particular account that you want to interact with. We're going to run this command, Lacework integrations list. We'll do Lacework int list, and I'm going to do -- type because I'm going to just stick to AWS right now. And we're going to sort just on the AWS configuration integrations. And I'm going to check out this particular one, and I'll say Lacework int show and pass in that GUID right there. And here is the account ID for this particular account. All right, so I'm going to, now that I have that account ID, I'm going to run the command Lacework compliance AWS -- help. And you'll see that we can get a report or we can run an assessment. An assessment is to say kick off an assessment of the configuration of the resources inside of my AWS account. Those run continuously. I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now, but I'll go ahead and I'm going to grab a report. So get report -- help. And you can see that we can get it's the ability to pull down a report that's already been generated. We can pull down a PDF, we can pull down JSON, we can pull down specific types of reports, like could be PCI, SOC, HIPAA, the default is CIS. So let's go ahead and do this right now. We're going to say Lacework Get Report, and it's going to be the account ID. And this time we're going to say -- type. And let's do the PCI report. All right, so now we've pulled down this PCI report. We can see we've got a number of different non-compliant resources. We can go and get the details for this particular report. And we can see all those resources that are non-compliant inside of our environment, that are in what rules there are being violated. But if we really want to dive in further, we can also just do a PDF. We can generate a PDF if we wanted to share that out with our team members. So I'll do the same thing. And this time I'm going to say -- PDF. And this will pull down a PDF version of that same report. If I list out the PCI report inside of my environment, you can see I've got a couple of them now. Let's go ahead and open this up. And we can see here now we've got a PDF report of this particular assessment for our environment. So hopefully this gives you quick access if you need to sift through this information, if you need to generate out new compliance assessments reports, you can do all of that with the Lacework CLI. All right, so that just about wraps it. There are a number of other things that we can do with the Lacework CLI. It is important to note that with all the commands that we've run today, that if you want to pass JSON to anything, you just want that raw JSON back, that's always accessible, always available. It's available for every single command. Hopefully this is helpful for you if you want to do your own integrations with other platforms. JSON's often a good way to get data from one place to another. So raw JSON is always there for you as well. We are going to continue to add a lot more capabilities to the Lacework CLI. This is the Lacework CLI. If you're not familiar with our Terraform project, the Lacework CLI works alongside of all of our Terraform code. So once you configure the Lacework CLI, our Terraform code can pick up any of those configurations and help you to automate your accounts. But we'll cover that as well in an up and coming with Lacework on Terraform. Okay, so that just about wraps it up now. Hopefully you found this valuable. You'll start using the Lacework CLI. I'm going to add links to all the documentation in the description for this. The GitHub project for where we're developing the Lacework CLI, it has some issues. We're always open for requests or feedback, comments on the tooling that we're building. If you have a pull request, that's even better. We just love to collaborate. As far as up and running with Lacework goes, if you've got any feedback for us with this, comments, requests for content, be sure to send us an email at upandrunning@lacework.net. Until next time, my name is Scott Ford. Thank you very much.